to It's a Woman's World, where we'll meet achieving women making a difference in our community. I'm Carolyn Bruna. Our guests are Sharon Hadari and Laura Henderson, authors of the book How Women Lead, the 8 Essential Strategies Successful Women Know. Welcome, ladies.
We're delighted to be here.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to have you on my show. I know you've been doing the circuit, and so I'm glad to stop by here. Yeah.
It's our pleasure.
Sharon, I'm going to begin with you. The story in the book actually begins with your story. Mm-hmm. So I want to read a bit. In the book, you say, as a woman, you were bringing a different perspective to the workplace, and you realized that what you brought was valuable, insightful, and made a difference. And this was in the 1970s working at IBM. Mm-hmm. Then you said you observed women managers, you got to know them, you followed their careers, and studied their leadership styles and challenges. And then back then, there were only a few women in leadership positions. So it seems How Women Lead has been your interest for quite a while, and I assume your passion. And so my question is, have you really been preparing for this all your life, and is this your passion? And tell us your journey.
Well, I'm doing my journey and my career, if you will, in 20-year segments. So I spent 20 years in the corporate America at IBM, which is where that story comes from, actually. And it was an amazing epiphany for me to say, but I am a woman, and I do things differently, and it works. But anyway, so I had 20 years in IBM and got a world-class education and leadership. From there, I went and spent 20 years at the Center for Women's Business Research, an organization that was started by Laura, and I was their first executive director. And what we did there for 20 years was research on women's entrepreneurship and women's leadership. And there what I saw was the impact that you can have with research-based knowledge to change the world, to provide access to capital, access to markets, and access to expertise for women. And now, in my third 20, I'm taking everything I learned in the first 40, and I'm synthesizing it, I'm writing, I'm speaking, and teaching on the issues around women's leadership and organizational leadership. And it's so exciting because in many ways this book is, as you say, a culmination of so many things I've studied and learned and seen over 40 years.
Wow. That's a wonderful journey. Yeah, amazing. And you're still right there, continuing it on. We hope for another 20 or 40, and then another 20 after that.
I haven't figured out what the fourth 20 will be, but I guarantee you it will be there.
Good, good. And I hadn't realized that you knew each other previous to writing this book and earlier. And actually, that's going to be a question, but before I do ask that, I want to turn to Laura and say that I noticed your journey doesn't start until chapter 5 in the book, and that is actually Success Strategy 5, right?
Right.
Translate the story's numbers that numbers tell actually to drive strategic results. So it sounds like you're really into the math and the money. Success Strategy 5 provides the knowledge to become financially sophisticated in business, to understand how to follow the money, and to value building business wealth. And so how is your story related to this and your own growth in business?
Well, when I was 33, I took my lifetime savings of $33,000 and started my own business right here in Montgomery County, Prospect Associates. And my dream for that business was for it to be large, for it to be successful, and for it to provide the foundation for my own personal, we'll call it wealth, but my own personal financial well-being. And so all of a sudden I have a company. I started, because I took a division I'd started in another company and took it and started my company. I started with 15 people and about 3 weeks of work. So we started the company, and I realized I really needed to understand finances, that I had a little understanding, but I was not truly steeped in finances. And so I recognized their importance. I wanted to be able to make payroll. I wanted to be able to build the organization successfully, which takes money. So I began my journey of starting a business and learning about the role of management in taking care of the health of the organization, especially financially. So I built my company to 200 employees and $20 million in revenues, and I sold it in 2000. And along the way, I had a wonderful time. I had phenomenal employees who taught me a great deal. I had children who taught me, I think, as much about managing a company as parenting. And I had marvelous, marvelous clients. And so the thing that I learned was that I did not manage the way men managed. And men would tell me, they'd pat me on the head, and they'd say, well, you too will learn to manage the way we do. And I knew I never would, because it wasn't who I was. So I found a group of other women entrepreneurs, and all of a sudden I found that we consistently were managing. We had similar values, we had similar ways of doing things, and it was such a relief. And then to learn from all of our experiences that it was successful. And going back to the stories, numbers tell, one of the things that happened was that the data coming out on women said that women's businesses had no employees and had less than $10,000 in revenues. And I was looking around and I was saying, gee whiz, all my friends have $1 million, $3 million, $5 million firms. So I helped start the center that Sharon went to work for, and we showed that in 1980,
late 80s, right?
Late 80s, that women employed more people in the United States than the Fortune 500 did worldwide. And this changed the whole world for women, not just entrepreneurial women, but executive women, and I think even women who don't work outside the home. It was a real shot of adrenaline to all of us.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. You know, you've already taught me two things that are takeaways that I hope the women and our viewers watching us will learn. And one is, Sharon, you said something important about research-based information and things that you use. You always had a research base, and that gives you the authority and the credibility. And Laura, you were saying money, manage the money and finances, and I think these are two things that younger women can use as takeaways that as they start their businesses and entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, to make sure to include these in their mix. You know, that's wonderful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And women have to be very careful. They have a tendency when we begin talking about finances to begin their comments with, I'm not very good at numbers, or finance isn't my thing, and it takes away their credibility. So we like to encourage women to get into it, but also to quit taking away their credibility with those kind of sentiments.
Yeah, absolutely true, and we do end up doing that. Even women at home who we say, oh, I'm only a mother, I'm only working at home, and we have to get rid of those types of words that do make us small or diminish what we really are doing.
Exactly.
That's a great idea. But let's go back to how you two got together and what inspired you to write this book. And I guess I have a clue from the Women's Business Center. Yeah.
Well, we've been talking about writing a book for more than 15 years. In fact, we actually, years and years ago, got ourselves an agent because we were so sure we were going to do this. But, you know, life intervened, and we didn't. And then about, 3-4 years ago, I had written an article for the Wall Street Journal and got a call from McGraw-Hill Professional Publishing, because on my website I'd always said I was writing a book. Yeah, someone said to me, just say it, Sharon. It doesn't matter what you're really doing. And I'd said, well, I intend to. You know, this is that intent. But anyway, McGraw-Hill Professional Publishing called and said, we are very interested in your book. And I went, oh. And they said, tell us about this book. So anyway, we ended up, I called Laura. I said, you know, we've been talking about writing a book. You really want to do it? And we spent a huge amount of time going back, you know, all the things that you see in the book, thinking about what did we want this book to be, what tone did we want it to have, as well as what were all the things that we had learned over the years and all that we saw in the research that we would put into it. So this was not okay, let's sit down tomorrow morning and write. There was a great deal of consideration and time that we put in together thinking about this.
We've really felt, both of us, that we had learned so much, and that what we had learned would really help other women. And that's, I think, the underlying drive for both of us. As Sharon said to me one day, you know, we're not writing this book to become famous or to make lots of money. We're really writing this book because we really want to help women have an easier job in building their careers.
Oh, well, that's great, yeah. Although your book is doing very well, and you were saying that it's got a relatively high rating on Google and in the Kindle.
Amazon, yeah.
Amazon and Kindle. I meant Amazon and Kindle.
And Barnes
right,
& Noble
yeah.
is doing great with the book,
yeah.
too.
Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And actually, there's a number of books now, and they seem to be successful and popular, you know, that women are writing about business women. So what is there, Leaned In, and there's a few others out. So how is your book different?
I think our book is, I think there's 3 or 4 kinds of books. There's the book that describes the challenges women face and the difficulties they have in achieving leadership positions. They're books that tell stories, individual entrepreneurial or corporate women stories. And then there are the how-to books. Our book was designed to say to women, yes, there are the problems in the system. We truly see them, we know they're there. But what can women do themselves? What can we tell them that will make their journeys easier and will help them get to the top if they know these things? And that's what the 8 essential strategies are. These are the things that if women study, plan, etc., they will have a much easier job getting to where they want to be in an organization.
But I think what also differentiates it, and you won't be surprised hearing this come from me, is that it is research-based knowledge. That we were fortunate that we had spent 20 years doing research on what differentiated women who were successful from those who did not grow their businesses as fast or as large.
And so, we love research.
Yes. So we had that research. We looked at all the emerging research that we could see, and then we went out and actually interviewed a number of highly successful women. But we didn't just tell their stories, we integrated them in with all of this research. So there's a solid and very rich foundation for what we wrote. But the other compliment that we have frequently about the book is that it's positive, that it says you can do this and here's how you can do it, and that we celebrate the strengths of women rather than focusing on what are the barriers.
And that's what I want to talk about, the strengths of women. We're actually going to break for a moment. Can you give me 2 of the most important strengths? 2 words.
They're very value-based. Values are very important.
Lead like a woman and take charge of your destiny.
Great. Okay, we'll go into more detail when we return. We'll break for a short public service announcement. When we return, we're going to delve into the 8 strategies that you can use to grow your business.
Every book is an adventure waiting to come to life. Visit new worlds. Encounter new friends. And discover the power of reading. Go to read.gov to read A Princess of Mars, the first novel to feature John Carter. A new world awaits. Read.
Welcome back to It's a Woman's World. We're speaking with Sharon Hadari and Laura Henderson about their book, How Women Lead, the 8 essential strategies that successful women know. Sharon, I'm going to begin with you again the second half and go into the impact that research has on women's leadership.
Well, one of the most exciting things, and this was part of the motivation to write the book, is that for the very first time in our history, we have hard data from prestigious sources that demonstrates that having women in leadership makes organizations more profitable and more productive. We heard from Pepperdine University that companies with more women in leadership are up to 69% more profitable. We hear from Credit Suisse Leadership Institute. They looked at corporations that have women on their boards of directors compared with those that don't. And the ones with women on boards of directors outperformed the ones that didn't have women on their boards of directors. And then we also see in terms of management styles, MIT did a study and discovered that the groups, problem-solving groups that are most effective and most productive have the largest proportion of women in them. Women predicts whether or not problem-solving groups will be effective. And finally, one of my favorite is Harvard Business School. Surveys of more than 7,000 people found that peers, direct reports, and bosses rated women as more successful, as better leaders than men. And as you went up the ranks, when you got up to the executive level, there was a 10% difference in favor of women.
Wow, yeah. And you know, I was very impressed by reading that portion of your book as well. And the other thing that I noticed is you said it wasn't here only in America, but it was international. You had mentioned some other countries where this research also held. So that was quite impressive. Yeah, good. And that's, I think, what we need more of, you know. Not, it's just our idea that we lead well. And I don't even want to say better, because the other thing I did enjoy about your book is you said we have a different style. And not necessarily better than men, not that theirs is better than ours, but we're complementary and we're different. And I'm going to go over, Laura, to you and say, how do women lead differently? We mentioned a few things.
Well, as I said before, they're much more value-based. Women know their values, and they live by their values. Their decisions are made through that looking glass, and therefore their employees know that they will be consistent in their decision making. They also are holistic. They don't look at their own lives as being silos. This is business, this is personal. They see their lives as integrated. And as they go to work and they solve the problems in their day-to-day work, they see the same thing. They see that that their decisions affect their employees, their company, their clients, their vendors. And as they make decisions, they think of all of these different components and integrate them, which takes us to the next thing that is different about women, and that is that women are consultative and participatory. They value relationships highly. They make good relationships lasting relationships. And they consult people in all the categories I mentioned before when they're making decisions. They ask their opinion. They ask what impact it will have. And people often say, well, that takes a lot more time. But what we've learned through research is even if it does take more time, and some studies show that it doesn't, the integration goes faster because everyone has bought in. They've already been heard. Their opinions have been taken into consideration as the decision was made. And so once the decision is made, things just go forward. And they're very quality oriented. I know in my company there was a term, the prospect way, and that meant quality, quality, quality. Everything had to be looked at by 3 people, but you will find that women are extremely quality oriented, and they're non-hierarchical. They don't care if an idea comes from a secretary, the janitor, or a senior vice president. If it is a good idea, they will buy into that idea. They're very good at bringing people together, as Sharon said, building teams that work and that are effective. And they're very good at integrating vision, values, and goals. They know what their employees want to accomplish, and they try to make sure that as they do the work of the corporation, that they accomplish those goals, their own personal goals, as they're accomplishing the corporate goals.
You know, I love your response. It makes me feel strong and proud to be a woman in business. I'm hoping, do you happen to have, or if you don't, I think you should put on your website that type of summary so that people can just, young women, business owners, women in business, doesn't matter where your corporation is, they can go to that website and download that specific part of your book and of your research to give us this credibility and this strength to say, yeah, this is what I can do and this is why it works.
One of the things we believe strongly is that it's no longer a discussion of whether women lead better or men lead better.
Right.
It's how we lead together to build strong organizations. But women have to believe in themselves, and they have to understand that they are affecting the bottom line, and we have a new story to tell, not just of the social injustices, but of what differences we as women are making in organizations. It's very exciting.
It is. It really is. And actually, you're leading me to my next question, because I wanted to ask about specifically a couple of the strategies, and one of them that I picked first is the one that says, advocate unabashedly for yourself. It's your fourth strategy. And I know as a woman, and I shouldn't have trouble, but we somehow still have trouble advocating unabashedly for ourselves without having somebody think, oh, you're either bragging or you're going on too long, or it's just, is this valid? How can I do it? Please help us. How can women do that? Advocate unabashedly.
Well, it goes back to this take control of your destiny. And the first thing is, as Laura said, to know your values, to know your goals, because before you can advocate for yourself, you have to know what you want. You have to know who you are, what your goals are, and what you're looking for. Then you can build the business case for what you want and determine, here are the strengths. Here's how I demonstrate those strengths. And then what we found is that if you're asking for a promotion, if you're asking for a job, a position, a contract, a job, you need to quantify. If I go in here's what I've done in the past. I've increased sales by 12%. I've increased the rate of throughput by 92%. I've all of these quantified. If you give me this job, here is what I will do for you, quantified. And then we go in and we ask for it. And that's the most important thing. Not to sit back and say, well, somebody else will figure out how to make the situation the best for me. We need to decide, here is what we're looking for, here is what works for us, and ask for it.
And I loved your word, quantify. That's something I don't think, or just speaking for myself, that I don't do well enough. And now I'm learning more and more, and quantify my results. This is what I've done. This is what I can then do for you in the future. And keep it results and research-based and results-oriented. I love that.
Well, as an employer, there was a big difference between how women came in and asked for salary increases or promotions and how men did it. And that was one of the large differences, is that women did not come in with facts and figures, and they talked about how hard they worked, not what they accomplished.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I'd also now like to ask about Success Strategy 8, which is one of my newest passions, turning possibilities into reality. And it's called Women Reaching Up and Reaching Back. So give us some tips on how we can support and help other women to grow, and help ourselves as well.
Well, certainly, I think all of us who are pioneer women in the workforce have a commitment to making a difference for other women. And for many of us, we sat on committees, and we were the only woman on the committee. And when we left that committee or that board, there were a number of women on the committees and the boards. So we feel that women need to consciously plan on how to help other women, how to mentor, how to sponsor, and how to provide confidence for women believing in themselves as women leaders, so that they can go forward and increase the number of women in business. Because a lot of people believe that the systemic changes will not change until we have a greater percentage of women in leadership positions. But Sharon, I know this is one of your favorite things to talk about, so I saved
Thank you.
part of the answer for you.
Well, It's not only about the mentoring and the sponsoring and the coaching. It's also about how you behave in business. Do you hire women? Do you make sure that women are in the pool to be considered for promotion or for jobs? Do you, if you are either the business owner or an executive in the business, do you encourage going in and actually checking? I know we have a policy that women and men are paid the same, but what is the reality? And these are the kinds of questions that you as a woman leader can ask to be a change agent. But there's two other parts of this whole chapter on turn possibilities into reality. One is to build a commitment to philanthropy, whether you're starting very small when you're a junior and very young in business, but continuing with both your financial resources and your personal resources to be a philanthropist. The final one, part of that section, and it's going to take two of us to talk about this, but it is always stay open to serendipity. And what we heard from so many of the women is, and actually Laura was the one who taught me this first of all. She said, you get so involved in your day-to-day schedule and in all the to-dos that you have, and you forget to find time to reflect on your business, on your life, to look at the opportunities that may be coming along that you just didn't notice. And so many successful women have said, the most important opportunity I had was not one that I expected. And as one of our interviewees said, she said, we cannot underestimate the importance of happy accidents. And I don't know if you want to build on that, Laura.
Well, it's just as a CEO and a mother and all the things that the balls I was trying to keep in the air, it was so easy to not look around and not see the things that were going on in my world that created wonderful business opportunities or wonderful personal opportunities. And we have to take that time, and we have to believe that the universe or whatever spiritual leader you have will provide these opportunities to you. And you want to be open, and you want to realize that they're there, and you want to take advantage of them.
Yeah.
So it's at least for me, my career was built around a lot of serendipity, and I think that's true for most people.
That's a wonderful thing. Yes, I like that a lot, to be open to serendipity, and I like the fact that women of all ages can look forward to helping other women, pulling things up, looking from above or looking from below. It doesn't really matter. That's wonderful. And tell us, how can listeners learn more about your book? Where can they find it?
We have a website, and the website is it's long but very intuitive, howsuccessfulwomenlead.com.
Great, thank you. And Laura, what's your final message?
Lead boldly, lead like a woman.
Great. Thank you. It's been enjoyable. I'm very happy to interview you. I hope you've enjoyed meeting our guests, Sharon Hadari and Laura Henderson, as much as I have, and you're inspired by their passions. If you know a woman who's gone above and beyond to contribute to our community, please email us for womensworldtv@aol.com. Remember, it's a woman's world. I'm Carolyn Bruna. See you next time.